Hello, I'm here. Hi
Hi,
everyone.
Fiona. So, Fiona, we've literally got hundreds of teachers from all over the world waiting to hear from you. And Fiona, for those of you who don't know, is the principal at the Wimbledon School of English. Has worked in this industry for many years. Worked in Cairo, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I've seen we have some Brazilians on the
Yeah.
webinar with us, and has been based in London since 1997. I was lucky enough, I used to manage a school in Italy, and I was lucky enough to have some training, face-to-face training with Fiona a few years ago, which was a great pleasure for me. I'm not sure if it was a great pleasure for Fiona, but I know that you're going to love today's webinar, and she is going to teach us all about how to lead our teams to success. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and Fiona, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Thank you. And thanks to Macmillan for inviting me to come and do this webinar. And thank you to everyone. There are 400 people online. This is unbelievable. Thank you so much for giving up your time. Um, Hopefully the next 45 minutes to an hour will be of use, and that you'll take something away from it, no matter what your job is. So, as Mike said, I'm Fiona. I'm the principal at Wimbledon School of English in London. I've been here in this school for 17 years, and I've been principal for a year. And before that, my background was academic. So I've been in academic management for about 20 years and in ELT for 30, which is incredible, really, because I still feel 30. So I don't know what that says about when I started. Um, so hopefully this will reach out to teachers who are online, to academic managers, to principals, to freelancers, to authors, to, I know I've got some friends here popping up online as well, so welcome to everyone. What I'm going to talk about is based purely on my experience, things that have worked for me over the years in working in ELT management, and also getting to know myself in a professional capacity and looking at my own professional development. And I think I would start by saying I feel so lucky. I think that we work in a fabulous profession, and lucky us. And I've had some fantastic opportunities from traveling, living abroad. As Mike said, I've been living. I lived in Cairo, I lived in Rio, I lived in Sao Paulo. I'm flying off to Laos straight after this webinar. You know, the opportunities I have are amazing, and sometimes I do feel very lucky. But I do then also wonder: is it only down to luck? Because I do like to reflect and from time to time look at myself professionally and see where I'm going. And something that I do notice in myself is that I like to say yes to opportunities, and I think that's important. That's got me the opportunities that I've had in my life so far. Saying yes and trying to get over the imposter syndrome that we often hear about, and just saying yes no matter how nervous I might feel about something, and then dealing with that later, and enjoying the nerves. I think, and also getting to know myself and knowing when to say no as well, and knowing my limitations and my capacity and my time management. And that's a little of what I'm going to talk about this afternoon. Um, and as I say, hopefully some of the things that I talk about, you will be able to take away to adapt to meet your own circumstances. Now, I do mention, I'm just seeing some people are saying their mics, the sound is not so good. I'm just moving my mic further towards me, see if that makes a little difference. And in the blurb, when I was putting this webinar together, I thought about managing people, leading, working in academic management and ELT management. And I thought, we often feel it's like spinning plates. And I think the idea of spinning plates, here we are, can often be very anxious. We feel anxious about the idea of this getting pulled in all directions. This is a little bit how our job feels. People always want a bit of us. Where's the time? How do we ever get anything done? And to an extent, that is true. But I do think as well, it's about our approach and how we look at spinning plates. People are never forced to spin plates. That man looks quite happy in the photo. He's chosen to do this. And I think it is about our outlook to an extent. And as I say, knowing ourselves and knowing our limitations with this. But I think with the spinning plates analogy, it's also challenging, it's exciting, It's surprising, it's unpredictable, it gives us a sense of achievement, it could be enjoyable, it's never the same. And I think this also applies to what we do in our everyday lives, whether we're academic managers, whether we're teachers. We're managing ourselves, our classes, our students, we're managing upwards, managing our managers. But I think also with spinning plates, it's about the belief in ourselves, and knowing that, yes, we can do something. And as I say, getting over that imposter syndrome and believing in ourselves and our abilities. Having a desire to succeed is also, you're not going to take something on with no desire to succeed in it. So I think we need that as well in our everyday professional lives. It's also about perseverance. It's about having energy, having time, having patience. And I think that's something that I want to hold on to as I go forward in the next 45 minutes. So my aim of today is to look at how we manage ourselves in order to lead our teams successfully. And I'm going to cover 4 areas that are very interlinked in how we get to know ourselves and therefore how we're kind to ourselves, how we address our own professional development, and then encourage all of these 3 points in others in our teams. That's what I want to cover. Now, those of you who have heard me speak before, those of you who know me, know that I talk a lot about the importance of taking the time to get to know the people that we work with, the people that we manage, whether it be students or staff. But today what I want to start by thinking about is getting to know ourselves. And Tessa Woodward says this very clearly. We're other aware, but how self-aware are we? Excuse me for drinking my water. I've got a little bit of a cold this afternoon. But I think we need to know our team, most definitely. But in order to do that, we need to know ourselves as well. And I'm going to think for the next 15 minutes about how we get to know ourselves. And what I would like to think about first of all is taking a look at a holistic view of ourselves. Professionally, I'm coming from, but this also applies to us personally. So a holistic view. Who are we and what is linked with us? And I'm going to look at something called systems thinking. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this. It will all become clear. It looks a little complicated here. It's a holistic approach. I'll let you read this for yourself. Now, what I'm going to ask you to think about and to consider once this webinar is finished is an exercise, a tool, a systems thinking tool, and I'm going to describe this to you. In this exercise, you have you in the middle of your paper or your slide here. As you can see, there I am, smiling away in my school, looking happy there in Wimbledon. And around about, these are the main areas that I see as defining myself professionally. And I've got here a new job on new team. I became principal here in the school a year ago, and so this is still very new to me. I'm learning. I've been in the school 17 years, and there are so many things that I thought I knew that I now know much better. I now deal with accommodation, I deal with registration, as I've moved away from only the academic. However, for the past 16 years, I had a team which consisted of all of my academic staff, all of the teachers. And I come from a teaching background myself, of course. Also, what makes up my life is my family and friends, the long-term business projects that I work on here in school. Health and fitness, of course, plays a big part in our lives. And then, of course, my own CPD. Now here, what I'm suggesting that we do with this exercise is once we have this picture, we then do this. And what this is having an arrow towards each of your items and an arrow away from each of your items. So if we take as an example my new job, and what I'm thinking is, what do I give to it? And I give energy. I give lots of time to it because I'm still learning. I give guidance to others. I give my patience and also patience in myself because I'm learning that I can't run before I can walk. I have to learn a whole new set of skills that belong to different departments. I'm also giving a lot of headspace. There's nothing in my head apart from my school. at the moment. Well, that's not true. I've also got a puppy, so my puppy is here as well. And then I give it more time. But what does my new job give to me? And this was really interesting for me because, and it was very rewarding to do this exercise, because what my job's giving to me is a change, new stimulation, sense of renewed pride in myself and also in the organisation I work for. It's giving me new challenges, it's stretching me, I'm learning more, it's making me nervous, I'm not sure always if I'm doing the right thing, and it's giving me job satisfaction. So I'm getting a lot out of it. And of course, you'll always have a balance of negative and positive here. What I'm suggesting now that you do with this exercise is you do that for every single aspect that you've broken down as seeing as part of your professional life. And you play with it. So for example, family and friends. What am I giving to that at the moment? Well, to be honest, probably not as much as I should, because a lot of my time and energy is going into my new job. Is that sustainable? No. If we're thinking about being kind to ourselves and knowing ourselves, then no. So at some point, I need to think about moving some of that time from new job over to family and friends, for example. And then I need to think about the impact of that. How will that impact my family and friends? Hopefully positively. But also, am I doing it at the right time? Do I know enough about my new job? Am I feeling stressed and tired? Is it the right time to move something away from one area and over to another? So what we're doing here is really analysing and looking holistically and in depth at ourselves and the role that we play in our own professional existence. I hope that makes sense to you there. Because I want to think now, I am running through all of this quite quickly because we've got an hour. If you are interested in looking at this in more detail, I am also running one-day training sessions in London and around the UK in May. So we will look at these areas in more detail. But what I want to think about is what that actually achieves. And here we are. So I think it allows us time to reflect and really reflect and reassess where our priorities lie. It allows us to focus more. It allows us to prioritise. And these are difficult things. It's easy to sit and listen and to sit and talk about it, but these are difficult things to actually do honestly and try to change. It allows you, though, to consider when to say yes and when to take opportunities. And it also allows you to see where you're stretching yourself and when it's time to say no. And for that reason, I do think this is an invaluable exercise. And I do this several times. I do it about once a year, this exercise, and it's very interesting to see how it changes from year to year as well. So what I now, because I know you're all sitting there, all 400 of you, you're sitting there thinking, this is nice, I'm sitting listening to this, but I am going to set you some homework. And my homework here is, of course, to try that exercise. If we were in a face-to-face environment with more time, I would ask you to take this time to do this, because it's all very well attending training and hearing good ideas, but then once we get back to our day jobs, everything becomes busy again and we don't. So I'm asking you to please try, if you take nothing else away, try this one exercise today, this week. Start it. Nobody is going to know about it. You don't need to share it. It's completely for you. So be honest as you can. Work alone at home. Do it without interruption. Put yourself in the middle and think about what components make up your life. And then consider, what do you give to each of the components and what do you get back? Think about how you can play with it, how you can move things around, and consider the impact. And don't just do this in 1 hour. 1 hour, who's got 1 hour to do something like this? Spend 10, 15 minutes on it and then revisit it and revisit it again. And really do work with this. It gives you a very good insight into yourself and how you are managing yourself and getting to know yourself. So I hope that makes sense there. I am thinking about self-reflection as we're talking about this. And this is what I ask myself, and this is what I would ask you to consider as well. Is it important? And how much do we actually do it? And if we're not doing it enough, should we be doing more? Why are you not doing it? Why do you not think it's important? And how could you modify this exercise to suit yourself? And then share it with your colleagues. Don't share your own personal map with your colleagues, but share the activity, share the tool with your colleagues. Get other people involved. So that's a holistic view of getting to know ourselves. I want to also move on. I mentioned Tessa Woodward earlier, but I want to look at now taking a microscopic look at ourselves and in the moment look at ourselves. And Tessa Woodward talks about this in the British Council English Agenda. I'll show you a link to that in a little while. And this is really about getting to know ourselves in the moment. And the exercise for this, we're calling checking in. And I've started to do this over the last year. I've started to do this, and really, it's not something that would sit comfortably with me normally, but I do find it very useful, and in a work capacity as well as a personal capacity. I do find it very useful. So what do we do in checking in? You stop for a moment. You take the time to contemplate. You think, what am I doing at the moment? What am I feeling? How am I breathing? Am I anxious? Am I too tense? Do I need to calm myself down? What do I want for myself and others in the next few minutes? Now just think about what this might do. And what I would say about this, and I did this only last week. I was on holiday last week, and I had a holiday at home, and I was planning my webinar, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to talk about, and what am I going to bring to all of you lovely people? And I stopped myself, and I did this exercise, and it just grounds you for that minute, and it makes you feel that you're taking that break from spinning your plates, and it's so refreshing. So what I would say about this kind of self-observation is, don't feel silly. This may be comfortable for many of you. For me, as I say, it's not something that I would have been comfortable with only a year ago. But don't feel silly. Give it a go, and give it a go more than once. Try it at work. Try it when you're feeling tense, when you're feeling pulled in all directions. And that might be from your students. It gets you to put things into perspective again. Notice the moment. How are you feeling? Is that feeling really necessary, or is it heightened? It allows you thinking time before we act and before we react, especially when we're dealing with people. And that helps with your stress levels. And it also has a better impact. It allows you to stop and think in a more calm way before acting or reacting to any situation in front of you. Count to 10. We always say the expression count to 10. Oh, count to 10, count to 10. Do we actually do it? This allows you to actually do that, to count to 10 and assess where you are in your head in the moment. So again, I would say, try this. And it's not only me that thinks this is good, it's not only Tessa Woodward, but there's lots of writing about this kind of activity. Philippa Perry here in her book, How to Stay Sane, talks about self-observation, and we develop more internal clarity and become more open to the emotional lives of those around us when practicing self-observation. So this is about looking at ourselves, reflecting, getting to know ourselves, and then leading to be kinder to ourselves. And again, I would ask you to think, is this kind of observation important and useful? Why not? What do you think about it, and how might you modify it to suit you? But I would say, give it a go. Tomorrow, later on today, give this a go. It takes you less than a minute, and it's rewarding. So my thoughts on this so far: reflecting, getting to know ourselves, it allows us to take that step back. And it feels like a luxury, but my goodness, it's easy to do. It's not time consuming. And it really does help with knowing yourself and being kind to yourself. So take a step back, take time to think and reflect before moving on. It allows us to know more about ourselves, and then in turn, that allows us to show more empathy towards those that we work with, be it students or other staff members. And it allows us then to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And there you can see, after only a few exercises, I did that very successfully with those nice big shoes. So what I'm thinking here then is I'm suggesting to you that we look at a holistic view of ourselves combined with lots of little in the moments. And that will help you to know yourself, to take yourself forward through a meaningful developmental path. Now, I mentioned earlier that Tessa Woodward had spoken about this. The slides will be available for you, and on the slide here you have the link to British Council English Agenda, to the teacher educator unit that she talks about this in. So, talking about reflection, there we are, lovely picture, talking about reflection. And this is all very well, but I also want to think about the practicalities. And as teachers, we often talk about reflective practice in our teaching, and we have very successful tools for this. But I want to look at, in any of our jobs, be it teacher, be it any kind of manager, be it author, whatever you are, how can we take reflective practice and put it into what we learn from teaching? How can we put that into our jobs? So what do we have in teaching in reflective practice? So we normally talk about peer partners, peer observations. We talk about observations in general, developmental observations for teachers. This is all about reflective practice and looking at our teaching. We also talk about reflective journals. I want to think how, with these three reflective practice elements, can we use this in ourselves, no matter what our jobs. And there we are. So peer partners. Now, I'm going to talk about critical friends, and there's a lot of writing on this. So if you are interested, please do email me or look online. You'll find a lot of information about critical friends. But basically, if you can find a peer partner as a critical friend, and this could be anyone. It could be a colleague, it could be someone in another school, it could be someone in another industry. But it's someone that you feel that you can trust and they can trust you, and you're willing to put in time and investment. Have a discussion together about what you want to get out of this. Agree on what structure you want to have and what timings. Be realistic with your timings. If you decide with your critical friend that you're going to meet twice a week and discuss and reflect on how you have performed in various tasks, that is probably not going to happen. Maybe once every 2 weeks would be more realistic. So stay realistic. Think about your time. Think about yourself. Keep anything that you set up with a critical friend short and sweet and focused and regular. And this is how I think I lead my life. If you decide that you want to focus on some element of professional development and you're going to spend an hour every Friday on this, you're not. With all the will in the world. Very often you're not. But if you break it down the way we do in the classroom into bite-sized pieces, and you keep it short and sweet, focused, you know what you want to get out of it, and repeat it and progress through it, then you will really see a difference, and it's more manageable. Follow a procedure with your critical friend. Careful description, honest description of whatever aspect of your work you want to focus on. Thoughtful listening, listening without interruption, really listening to your peer partner. And questioning, again, honest questioning, questioning that is asking for real answers, not with hidden agendas. And hopefully, from your critical friend, you will have a good support and you can arrange to meet up, give something back, build upon your relationship. These kinds of relationships professionally can grow into something very strong. So that's our peer partners. And there you'll find a little paragraph on critical friends. So moving on, observation. And here I've identified three kinds of developmental observation that we use in the classroom. And I'm thinking how, and I'm thinking here, I'm a manager, I've been an academic manager for many years. I'm going to think from this point of view, but this can also work for any of your professions. So blind observation. Now, blind observation in the classroom would be when the observer does not come into the classroom. The observer sits with you as the teacher, and the teacher talks through the lesson plan, talks through the anticipated problems, the possible solutions. Then the teacher goes in and delivers the lesson, but with no observer. And then you arrange to meet again. This could be with your critical friend, with your observer, and you have time to reflect and decide and how whatever aspect you're focusing on went. If it's in the classroom, you would run through your lesson plan and decide where you might make changes, what went well. And again, be praising of yourself as well. We can be very critical, can't we? Praise yourself, whatever you do. But with your blind observation as a manager, for example, I could do this going into a difficult meeting with someone, dealing with a group of challenging students. Maybe I decide to talk to my critical friend, I give them a Skype, I email them and I say, this is what I'm planning to do, these are my anticipated problems. I go in, I have my meeting, I have someone there as a sounding board to reflect on how it went. Recorded, again with the people's consent. It's so simple now with our iPhones, with our different devices, record ourselves for a focus period, or possibly even have your recording on for the day and listen to what your office sounds like. Is it chaotic? Are you getting things done? Are you being realistic? Recording and listening back either by yourself or again with a critical friend, with a peer, with someone else in your office. And then evidence-based observation, if you're familiar with it, is when the observer comes into a classroom and the teacher has identified maybe 2 or 3 areas that they want the observer to look at. And the observer takes quantifiable notes. So for example, as a teacher, you might ask how many concept questions you ask. And the observer will just count, will just mark the 2 or 3 areas and then show that back to the teacher to make conclusions and to have a discussion on. But this would work with management as well, why not? We can decide on a couple of aspects. For example, when giving bad news, if you have to give some bad news, if you need to give some bad feedback to a teacher, think about how you're going to deliver it. And then ask the person that you're going to work with, your critical friend, to pay attention to how many times you use a certain expression. Are you repeating yourself? Very often when we give bad news, we repeat the bad news. You don't need to do that. The person who's receiving the bad news has heard it the first time. So it's little things like that in your evidence-based. Moving on to journals and writing. Now journals, I think it's a lovely concept to think that we sit and we write screeds reflecting upon ourselves. But in reality, we don't have time. So break it down. Write things down, but write them down in small bite sizes. Use post-its. Reflect upon them. Make it a habit. Come back to them. Write little notes on the side of your to-do list. How did you do? It's about always being proactive and questioning how you have managed any aspect of your work, any task that you've done that day. Thinking about preparation, for example, with a difficult meeting with a teacher. Revisiting templates that you've got in school, staff appraisal form, for example, or a self-evaluation form. Every now and again, get the staff appraisal form out and just use some of those questions to think for yourself, how are you performing? And you're reflecting on some of those aspects. What have you learned? What have you done well this year, etc. Just reflect using a template. We can also produce for ourselves very simple performance checklists. And here's an example of one. I'll just let you have a little look at that. So very, very simple. Just put it in a table, what it is you want to focus on. That's as much as it needs to be with a reflective journal. But it's actively doing those things and taking the time rather than just doing the same thing again and again because it's what you know, because it's the easiest thing. So to recap, what we've done so far is we've looked at ourselves as part of a system. and we've looked at ourselves in moments in time. And then we've considered ways of reflecting in our day-to-day jobs. So I'm asking you to take away from this, what would you experiment with? What would you adapt and why? Now that's lovely. So we've reflected, but what I would like to do is think about moving forward. Because without moving forward, how can we plan our goals? How can we address our CPD? How can we set examples to others? So moving forward, now for me again, I'm going to give you another tool. So I've asked you for homework to do the systems thinking activity. I'm now going to ask you to turn that piece of paper over, and on the other side of that, I'm going to ask you to do a SWOT analysis of yourself. I'm sure most of you are familiar with SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. We might even use this in classroom, we might use it with business classes. But how often do we take the time to actually SWOT ourselves? Again, this can be 10, 15 minutes. Do it the minute you log off, why not? Do it on the train home tonight. And really, again, be honest with yourself. Look at your strengths. So for example, here, I've identified an area in each of the quadrangles for myself. So my strength at work, I think I'm good at nurturing people, good at nurturing positivity, encouraging positivity in people. Weakness, I think I can take things personally. I'm being very honest with you here. I don't even know half of you, and there, I take things personally. And of course, you know, that has implications, but once I write that down and once I'm honest with myself about it, I can start to think, how do I manage that? Opportunities. Coming from a training and teaching background, now as principal, I think there's an opportunity with my skill set to combine marketing and training workshops. A threat, and there could be a threat here, a shift in staff dynamics for me. If I'm going out, if I'm marketing, now that I've changed job, I'm leaving behind to an extent a team that I've worked with for a long time. There could be a change in staff dynamics, and that could be a negative change. So that's something that I need to think, how do I preempt that? How do I make sure everything's running smoothly? So there we're just swatting. And with swatting there, what we've done is we've reflected, we've got to know ourselves, we've seen where there are opportunities to say yes, where we know our capabilities and limitations to say no. And then we're looking forward. And from here, we can start to think about our own professional development and what is available to all of us. And sometimes I think as we get into other roles within a school, we can leave aside our own CPD. And I think that's a terrible thing to do. We're in teaching and learning. And for me, I'm working with teachers, I'm working with students. I must show that for my own self, that I am still passionate about my own professional development in order to encourage that in others. So here I've identified some things that are available to all of us. I'll let you just take a minute to have a look at that. So of course, you're all online, you've all given up an hour of your time to join me today, so you're already doing online CPD with the Macmillan webinars, so that's a great start. And I'm sure once you break it down, you're doing a lot of professional development. Make sure that it's useful, make sure that it's relevant, make sure that it's interesting for you. Do this for yourself, and then the rest will follow. Start things. Depending on where you are, what are your surrounding schools like? Start a CPD group, start to share best practice. I know there's often a conflict of interest there if you're talking about competitor schools, but to an extent, talking and sharing experiences with your peers in other schools will not lead to them being like you. Only you can be like you. And so I think sharing best practice is great. Another one here, we've got visiting other schools. How often do we do that? You're all welcome to come to Wimbledon. If you're in London, come and see me. Come and see another school. Pop your head in the door. We all have visitors. It's nice to be able to show someone our school, to learn a little about the systems. Critical friends that I mentioned. Informal learning practices. And this informal learning practice is something that's happening every single day in a teacher's room. When you've got teachers sharing ideas, talking about the lessons, talking about the students, sharing things that have been successful, the buzz of a teacher's room, that is informal learning practice. Now, Liam Brown talks about informal learning practice and he puts a bit more structure to it. And again, this is so simple to implement, no matter what our jobs, no matter how many plates we're spinning. All we're doing is we're taking 5 minutes to question here. What have I learned? What have I learned today? What have I learned this week? Something that I say to managers when I'm training them is, in my school, sometimes it's a job with little praise. So walk out of the school every day thinking, what have I achieved? What have I done? And congratulating yourself. And add to that, what have I learned? So then from there, think, what do you want to learn? What do you want to improve upon? And that can be minuscule. It doesn't need to be a huge project. It can be something for tomorrow. It can be something for the next week. How are you going to do this? What's my time scale? How will I know? How are you going to measure when you've actually moved forward with this? And it might be that you decide to set a standard. It might be that you share it with your critical friend. You might ask feedback from your peers, from students, from teachers, and who will benefit. And then revisit this. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. It can be done so easily. And I'll just share with you again the link. Of course, the slides will be available for everyone. And so here is a link giving you more information about informal learning practices. And it's so simple that I am now going to ask you for 1 minute, because I'm conscious of time, 1 minute only, everyone online. Get up, stretch your legs, do what you like, but within that, I've said 2 minutes here, but I am aware of time. Write down or consider one mini goal, mini, that you would like to set for yourself professionally in the next month. It is not a huge project, it's one little thing that you're conscious of that you'd like to work on. Think, how are you going to achieve this? How will you know? And who will benefit? I'm going to ask you for 1 minute to either stand up and stretch your legs and think about this, or to write it down. I'm not going to ask you, I'm just giving you the time. Okay, I'll stop you there in true teacher fashion. Now, I have set you all a number of tasks to do. And as I said, I do urge you to do these. I've asked you to do a systems thinking activity. I've asked you to look at your moment in time. I've asked you to do a SWOT analysis, and I'm now asking you to set a little mini goal and let us know if you achieve this. Share it with me, share it with any of the people online, share it with a colleague, and feel that sense of achievement. We're all achieving little mini goals every single day, if only we recognise them. So, what does all this mean? How does this help us? How does this lead your team to succeed? Or how does it lead our team to success? And a team can be your students, it can be your teachers, it can be the whole staff, whoever your team is. How does this help with success? I'm going to ask you just again for a second. My time is getting shorter, so I'm saying a second. How would you finish that sentence? And here's what I think about that sentence. I think leading our teams to succeed is about investing in them, investing in their well-being and their development, and ensuring that they feel valued. And that's what I've just asked you and just talked about with you for the last half hour, in ourselves. We can only do this by leading by example, and by giving ourselves our tools, then we can also give those tools to others. So we're investing in ourselves, our own well-being, our development, and making sure that we feel valued in order to pass that on to our team. But with the title, I wondered about success. And I thought, what does success mean? A successful school. A successful school. A successful school, we often think it means financially a successful school, a successful business. But success, when I looked in the dictionary, there we are, very simple. The achieving of the results wanted or hoped for. And I think this is important because we need to know what we want to achieve in order for us to be successful. I think that's a very useful point here. Sorry, jumped over. We need to ask ourselves, what do we hope to achieve for ourselves? What is success for us, for our school, for our team, and for our colleagues? So of course we have financial success there, but it's also other things. It's our job satisfaction. We talk about work-life balance, don't we? But a lot of our life is spent at work. So why is there that divide? We must also love our work. We must have pride in our work. Or else why are we doing it? ELT is a fabulous profession, but it's not a well-paid one. I'm sure you'll all agree with me. So we want job satisfaction. We want student satisfaction, customer satisfaction. We want students to feel valued. We want them to see progress. We want contentment. We want a sense of worth, a happy, positive work and learning environment, a sense of sharing, giving something back. We're in a caring industry, aren't we? You will have others as well, but knowing your own vision, your own path for development will help you to lead your team and to lead the school with that. So we need to know our own vision. We need to know our own set of values, what we will do, what we'll say yes to, or what we need to say no to. And we need to know our professional ethos. So again, it comes back to knowing about ourselves, knowing when we'll say yes, being kind to ourselves, and making sure that that is compatible with our school vision, our school set of values and professional ethos. So finally, to wind up, what I would say is that we're all leaders, we're all spinning plates, no matter what our job within ELT. And what a wonderful job it is. Of course we pull our hair out, of course we feel stressed at times, but we're all spinning plates, and we've all chosen to do this. So look at it positively and think, how do we instill the energy, the belief and the ability in others that they can also do this successfully and enjoy it. Positivity breeds positivity. Share our experiences, our goals, our achievements. Show the people around us, our teams, that we too are learning, that we're moving forward, that we're out of our comfort zones. Show our vulnerabilities and really lead by example. We talk about leading by example, but again, it's one of those expressions now that sometimes we need to unpick a little, don't we, and think, are we really leading by example? And finally, I would say we need to know ourselves and our teams and be kind to ourselves and our teams, and be aware of our professional development and again that of our teams, and know when to say yes and also when to say no. And all of that put together should make for a joint sense of development, achievement, and a vision for success. And with that, I would say to everyone who's online, thank you very much. I'm deeply honoured that you've taken an hour of your time in a busy day to join the webinar. I know that Mike is going to come back in now, and then there should be some time for questions.
Hi Fiona, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So Fiona, thank you so much for such a wonderful webinar, and a special thank you to all of the teachers, academic managers who joined us online. So we've had 500 teachers from all over the world, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And a big thank you actually to the team here at Macmillan, Kasia, Piotr and Sonali, for all the work they do behind the scenes to make sure the webinars run smoothly. So thanks to everyone. And because you've all paid attention for the entire hour, you all get a special certificate. So you will, if you're on the Click webinar, you will receive your certificate by email, so that will get sent to you automatically. So I know there are some people on the Facebook streaming live. Um, Unfortunately, we can only provide certificates if you're registered to the webinar via Click. The video of this will be available next week on our YouTube channel. So if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from Fiona's brilliant session, then you can let them know, or indeed you can watch it again yourself. So we'll share that on our YouTube channel next week. And our next webinar isn't just a webinar, it's a mini online conference on the 6th of March, and we're going to have 5 presentations, and it's because it's International Women's Day that week, we're continuing our celebration of the contribution of women in education. So you just need to register the same way that you registered for today's, just going to the Macmillan site and the webinars page. So hope to see you all there on the 6th of March. So we have a few more minutes left. Do you have any questions for Fiona? So lots of people saying thank you.
I know. Thank you all for listening.
And Fiona mentioned she's doing some face-to-face training in the UK. Fiona, remind me, did you say in May?
Yes, it's in May for English UK. I'll be in Glasgow, London, and Manchester, I believe, and then in the autumn I will be in Exeter. So that's English UK if you're here in the country.
Well, as somebody who has attended Fiona's sessions, face-to-face sessions, I can heartily recommend that if you're in the UK and you're able to join, then please do that. I might be signing up myself, so I might see you there. And I haven't seen any questions. I did see someone saying they'd really like to have a cup of tea with you, Fiona. So,
well, I will be at IATEFL. Come and say hello.
So that's right. If any of you are at IATEFL in Liverpool in April, I'll be there all week, and I know Fiona is there as well. So please do come and say hello. Let us know that you joined us on the webinar.
I'd be love to come to Ukraine. I can see someone saying come to Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, I'm going. I'm going on Friday. So I'm hoping to see many of you who are based in Kiev at the Grade Silver Teacher Training Day on Saturday and Sunday. So, Fiona, there is a question here. Can you suggest any further reading?
Yes. Now, I've got a book here that I read, and it really helped me with the whole of the discussion that I've just had, The Power of Moments. And I would really recommend having a look at that. It's a nice, easy read. It's not an ELT book, but it's incredible. It does look at, if I can move a slide on here, it looks at moments and managing positive moments for your team and for yourself. And if you're not having enough good moments, then create some more.
It's great advice. Lots of people saying thank you. Also, thank you for your generosity in sharing your wisdom and ideas.
Thank you.
So I think, because I know Fiona, you're going somewhere exciting.
Yes, I'm off to Vientiane in Laos in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, Kazakhstan, I would love to be there as well. I can see the comment.
So everybody inviting Fiona, are you happy if I carry Fiona's bags for her as well and come along? Is that okay?
I've already got several people in there.
Any tips for managing shouty people? So difficult people, angry people.
I think there again, just off the top of my head, I would go back to the little exercise of checking in and encouraging that in staff, doing that as a staff activity, and getting people to try and calm and stop for a moment before acting and reacting.
Yeah. Okay, well, I know, Fiona, you have to dash to the airport. You've got a long flight ahead of you,
Yes.
and I think um, everyone here is so grateful for all your great
Yes. Thank you.
advice. So, on behalf of Macmillan Education, I'd like to say a big thank you to you, and hopefully I can persuade you to come back and offer another webinar at some point in
I'm
the
sure
not
I
too
will say
distant
yes.
future. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
So,
Thank you to everyone at Macmillan and to everyone who's online as well. Lovely, lovely to talk to you all.